Good morning and a happy Friday to you all. Welcome to Thrive, Not Just Survive. I'm your host, Nasira Jamal, and today we are continuing our conversation on Black Lives Matter with Dr. Cheryl Bryant Bruce. I wanted to, just sort of give you an overview of the last few weeks of what we've been talking about and why we're continuing this conversation. You see, I think that for a lot of people, as it gets, something gets propaganda or on the news, you hear something, you can, for a moment, be part of that conversation. But life goes on and people start doing their own things, and we lose traction in some of the things that really are what needs our attention, what needs our solidarity, what needs us to come together so that we can create the change that we want. And the idea of equality, of just the human race, I can't believe that we're having this conversation in this day and age. But unfortunately, the foundational stuff that was there has not really been fixed. And so we're building problem upon problem, and the layers are now being pulled back because people are fighting back. And so today I want to talk to Dr. Cheryl about this conversation that we're having with our groups, and in terms of reverse racism, how that is a conversation that needs to be had, and the differences need to be noted so that we can actually have more effective communication, more empathy towards the people that we are trying to support, and really understanding the gist of what is going on from a different perspective. So I want to bring Dr. Cheryl on so we can get this conversation started. Hey, Cheryl, thank you so much for joining me. It's such a pleasure to have this conversation with you.
Good morning, Nasira. Always good to be here with you, and we always have some great conversations, both at this time and in our time afterwards when we discuss the show.
Absolutely, because I think, as we've said over the last few weeks, like, this conversation is an important one to have. The key is to continue the conversation with not just talking about everything that's not working or things that have happened that are detrimental to the Black community, but also talk to the idea or the solution-based things that we can talk about strategy and what people can do from their place of where they are at. Because naturally, some people will say, well, I don't feel like that, I'm not a racist, therefore I can't do anything about it. So we've really continued this conversation about how really every single person can come towards solidarity about this particular thing that we really need to change. And so today, before our getting on live, we really talked about the reverse racism conversation that you've had, and that these are things that are out there that we need to address. So can you sort of walk me through this whole thing about the reverse racism mentality?
Okay, I can. And what's been happening is that a lot of people are now coming, they're coming to an awareness that there's an issue, and they want to have the conversations, and they don't feel themselves to be racist. They want to talk. They have friends of color. They have Black friends. They have brown friends. Just friends of color, melanated people, highly melanated peoples. And so they want to show solidarity, and that is appreciated. But the conversation that they're bringing is, I have solidarity with you because I went through this experience like yours. And I'm not racist because I've had your experience. And see, it happens to other people besides Blacks. It happens to white people too. That is when they get into trouble. People have been coming to me this week, a number of them quite upset because they have put the conversation out there like that and immediately received the backlash. They received the backlash from other people. Everybody's on social media, everybody's checking in on other people's social media as these discussions are being had. So they're receiving the backlash from people who do not know them, who immediately attack that position because it is an erroneous position. What is bringing them to me to discuss it is because their feelings are hurt, because not only are people who don't know them attacking the position, but it's offending the people who do know them. It's offending the person that they're claiming solidarity with. And they're coming to me going, you're my Black friend. I don't understand this.
Right.
And it's an interesting thing, because even that position that they're coming with, you're my Black friend. We have tons of friends, but they single you out as their Black friend. And I'm sure, being of East Indian descent, you get singled out as my Indian friend. And so, right there is a problem, because when we think of our white friends, we don't think of my white friend. We think of my friend. But when we
Right.
think of our people of color, we think of our Indian friend, our Asian friend, our Black friend. And that comes from this whole underlying thing of systemic racism. When we think about racism, and this is my opinion, I see that there are actually three distinct forms of racism. There is an ugly form of overt racism that is based in meanness. It's based in a need to feel superior. It's based in a need to have power and control and to dominate others. It is not based in ignorance. It is a conscious decision to subjugate and rule over other people. That is covert racism. That is ugly. That is what most people are rejecting when they say, I'm not a racist. There are two other forms of racism, however, and to some extent, we're all racist. That's right. This little face is Black, but I'm claiming racism too. We all have it. We all have a case of isms at one point in time or the other, whether it's racism, whether it's sexism, whatever ism, we all have it. We all have to claim it and take accountability for it. The two other types of racism are the racism for both, in both cases, they happen at a more subconscious level. And those two types of racisms are the systemic racism that most people are a part of. And in some ways, if we think about racist as oppressors and the people that they're discriminating against as victims, in some ways, people who are systemic racist are victims as well, because they are racist by virtue of a system that has put them into that place. It is not necessarily a conscious choice. And when I say not necessarily a conscious choice, there is an element of consciousness to it. And that is the part where we talk about people being complicit with racism. That is the part when people see the same thing happen, and the Black person or the brown person or the Asian person or whoever it is happening to says, this is happening, I see it. And the white person says, Oh, you're just being sensitive. Oh, I don't think that's what happened at all. This is what I see. Oh, that happens to me all the time when it's not the same thing. I go into a store to shop and I'm watched. From the moment I walk into the store, I'm watched. And some nefarious character comes in behind me and can walk away with the whole store, but it's assumed that I can't afford a $1 piece of junk that's in the store and that I will take it.
Right.
And
Right.
so
And it's
I'm
probably
watched.
also just the stereotype, right? That
Yes,
Black people are not to be trusted with
yes,
making good decisions,
yes,
right? So this
yes,
is where that thought comes in, is to keep an eye on the Black person,
yes,
just for that particular belief that one has.
yes. And where does that come from? That is a part of that systemic racism. It is a part of the projection that is created for America. It is not who Black people are, it is who a very minute number of Black people are. And if you look at that minute number, it's the same minute number that are engaged in nefarious activities in other races. There are white people killing and stealing and doing all kinds of other things. There are Indian people doing it. Every color is doing it. Every quote race is doing it. And yet, what has been projected by the media is that this is who Black people are.
Right.
And
Basically, it's
so
like being painted to say all Black people are criminals.
exactly. Exactly. I mean, Black people are criminals. Black females are prostitutes. If we're not prostitutes, we're nannies. We all run around and roll our eyes and it's grin and fetch it. And we all rap. We all what is that calling? We're all twerking.
Right.
There are these images that define us. And none of us wear very many clothes,
Right. Right.
And if we
Right.
do, they're ginormous, garish, blingy things.
Right. Right.
So this is who we are, and we all play basketball. Okay?
Right.
So these are the ways that we're defined. And the interesting thing about that is a it re, it creates a systemic racism even within our own people, because our young people are seeing these same images as everyone else. And while we're saying the same thing that everybody else is, get a good education, get good job training, go out and have a happy life, our young people see that if they're not rappers or ball players, then they're unlikely to have the financial wherewithal to go out and have a happy life.
Right.
And especially in this day and age where it is harder for our children to even reach the levels that we have reached economically, they look and they see their only avenues as being a rapper or
Mm-hmm.
taking off your clothes on a rap video or being a ball player. And one of the things that they're not appreciative of is that these images of these people in quote positions of success, those people are few and far between. And while they think they have an equal chance of landing there, they don't realize that those people also have already been tracked, and that the systemic racism system that is in existence is only going to allow for a fraction of a percent of people to get there.
Right.
So now our Black children are aspiring to be something that they're unlikely to arrive at. and something that in many cases is casting negative images on our people.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, the flip side of that is there's almost a backlash towards education and towards working hard. I can just learn to rep and I'm going to be rich. I don't have to learn any other skills. I don't have to show up on a job every day. So this is impacting the Black community as well, these negative images. You know, we have comedians that are out joking, but you know the language is foul, and so that becomes a part of the vernacular for our children because it becomes cool to speak that way, and they don't understand the difference between having that voice and having a professional voice on a job. They don't understand these things. So, you know, the impact is global. It impacts the African American community and it impacts everybody else because it gives people a perception that makes them react in a certain way. And that certain way is a racist point of view. It is systemic racism. The other part of that is that there are uncountable areas of privilege that come with that. And some of those areas of privilege are glaring, but there are just so many sublayers of that privilege that people are not even aware that they have until those things are pointed out to them. And that is one of the things that differentiates systemic racism from reverse racism.
Okay.
And reverse racism is what whites are experiencing and what whites are claiming solidarity with. And reverse racism is very different because reverse racism, they are getting a backlash from the Black community or from whatever community that minority community may be. And the reason they're getting it is it's reactionary. So these people are reacting with racism because they are coming from a defensive mode. And that reverse racism is empowering for
Mm.
them. You know, they have been stripped of power and self respect. They have been stripped of nearly everything in some cases. And so when a white person comes into the mix and is in a position where they are not in the position of power, where those who are surrounding them have more of a position of power, then there is kind of a sense of, well, let's see how you like it to
Right.
have the shoe on the other foot. You
Right.
know, it is not uncommon. I mean, I'll use the term going to the back of the bus. You know, we were physically, literally sent to the back of the bus for years, and Rosa Parks brought us out of that. Rosa Parks is just a figurehead. Every single day, there is someone refusing to go to the back of the bus, and yet every single day, we're being pushed to the back of the bus, in a sense. So when a white person comes into a situation, and I'll use a friend that I had who was sent to work in a Black community, basically as a social worker, and she would go down to the social services office where um, poor Blacks were sitting around trying to receive services and in a position that they aren't happy to be in the first place. And they would see her come in as a white woman, and she would basically go to the back of the bus. We come in and we sit and we wait and we sit and we wait and we sit and we wait. And white people walk in and they're taken ahead of us. Or, we go to the counter and it's like, yeah, go sit over there, get out of the way. And the white person comes in and they say, oh, may I help you?
Right.
Well, all of a sudden, the white social worker comes in and she's sitting amongst all of the blacks. And they are looking at her as in a position of being privileged. And they're like, oh no, not today. You don't get to be privileged here. Go to the back of the bus. And she was like, I'm looked over, I'm ignored, I can't get help. And in her case, she's like, well, I had to go back to the office and get my black friend to come and help me get services. And she was actually there to help. She said, to help me just get acknowledged so I could provide the
Right.
service. And she did this job for a year or so. And my response was to try and explain the differences to her because, these were evil, terrible, nasty people. And so, you all do it too. You all do it too. And I was like, well, it isn't really an us and them
Mhm.
situation. I said, what is happening there is this is racism. You are right. It is painful. It is inconvenient. You feel disrespected and all of that. But in many ways, they are not doing it at a conscious level. They are reacting to you based on a defensiveness about the way that we have been treated for 400 years and that they have been treated every single day of their lives. It's like this experience of reverse racism is painful for you for a year. You do have the ability to walk out of that situation. You can go back over here and choose not to deal with it at all. We don't have that choice. And so these people are reacting to all of the insults that have been put on them since the day they were born. And they have an opportunity with you in that moment to vent some anger and hurt and feeling of being disrespected that they don't even realize that is just consuming them underneath. And it's
Yeah.
like the conversation that I had with my father, where I talked about all of this being so exhausting. It's like, I have lived this every day of my life for 60 years, and his response was, "Well, just think about how it would have felt to have done it for 83." Like, hello. And so
Yeah.
that's the conversation that I've been having with people. You're doing it for a year. Just think about what it would be like to do it for a lifetime, for an ancestral lifetime. And just think about what it would feel like to be trapped in it and not to know if you'll ever get out of it. I honestly don't know. And I suspect that I won't see equality in my lifetime. You
Yeah.
know,
So it's like that, right? Where people, if you don't see the light at the end of the tunnel, it's like hope is distinguished, like it's extinguished, sorry. So
mm,
it's almost like you're fighting for something that you don't have hope that it will change, like that you even have a chance at it. And so that would probably make people even more angry, frustrated, like,
Mhm.
in terms of keeping at least a little bit of who they are, what they are, wherever they are, trying to hold some sense of power of
Yes.
themselves. Yeah,
Yes, and we talk about the rioting, and everybody's like, oh well, those blacks looting and rioting and this, that, and the other thing. I understand the both the rioting and the looting. I don't necessarily, well, I don't think that they're effective. I don't think that the rioting is an effective way to do this. But again, as we spoke about last week, most of the rioting is not being done by blacks anyway. Most of the rioting is being done by whites who feel like they want to do something different. And young whites want a change to come, and they want a change to come quickly, and they want to feel like they were a part of making that change come. And at a subconscious level, what they're needing to do is wash their slates clean. If
right,
I do this, I can be forgiven.
right,
And that's an interesting thing, because they sense some responsibility for this, and they want to be forgiven for this. And I had this conversation in a feed with a friend who came to me because she had had the experience of reverse racism. She had posted a post of solidarity and then was just incredibly hurt and alarmed when there was a backlash to the post, as she's saying, oh well, I understand because I've experienced this too. And immediately people who didn't even know her jumped on and slapped her about the head and neck and said, you have not experienced this. And, even the friends that she was trying to support, they were, we were, I won't say they, I'll say we, because I was one of them too, who was like, in my case, I understood because I'm processing all of this on many different levels. Some of her friends just didn't even understand. They were
right,
like, "Are you crazy? Do you really think that you've had my experience?" And so I had to gently explain the differences. And one of those big differences is, for the most part, the racism that we experience, it every day of our lives has the potential to end our lives or to severely impact our lives. Every day, the courses of our lives may be dramatically changed by the racism that we experience. You know, if nobody kills you, Nasira, because of your brown skin, but your son walks out the door and somebody kills him, your life has been forever changed, dramatically impacted, and you will never be whole again. You are broken, and you may push forward, and you may, on the surface, be successful, do well, but there is a part of you that is forever broken and
yeah.
cannot be
So,
fixed.
so can you shed some light on, because I think a lot of people may be doing it, like you said, because they want to be in solidarity, they want to support their friends, they really feel like something is wrong, and
Yes.
but they
Mhm.
don't know really, like, especially with this lady, this experience where she posted something out of good intention,
Yeah.
to say I'm in solidarity, but then gets a backlash. What would be a better way then to be able to show this solidarity and not sort of come across and offend is still further
Yeah.
the pain that's already there?
A better way is the position that you took. I mean, we had a conversation very, very early in this experience. And as a brown sister, you said, I acknowledge where you are. I have felt some of that pain before. I remember the experience of being the girl in the lunchroom that no one would eat lunch with. And I remember the feelings of rejection. And then the next thing out of your mouth was priceless. It was, I remember these feelings, and so I can feel some of your pain, and I am hurting with you. I know this is not the same experience. I know that it's not on the same magnitude. You acknowledged your own feelings of pain, and especially in the earlier days of our discussions, there was a lot of pain for you. There was the pain of having to come to grip with your own similar experiences. There was the pain of thinking about, well, where do I fit in this all? What have I done to be complicit or to perpetuate even? And there was the pain of initially not having any idea what to do, feeling like you couldn't make a difference, feeling some of our hopelessness. You acknowledged all of that and you said, teach me, let's talk about this so that we can understand each other's perspectives. Because, as I said, people who are part of the privilege in a systemic racism system are also victims of it.
Right.
They enjoy privileges that they haven't necessarily earned, and then they're accountable for doing things that they weren't even aware that they were doing.
Mm.
And when that awareness comes, there's a pain that comes with it. And so, in a sense, they're victims because they have to experience that pain in order to do anything different.
Right.
And
I mean, this is such a it's a needed conversation, but it's a heavy conversation because you really have to serve your own like figure out your own demons and your own stuff that's going on.
yeah,
And this is really the hard part because
yeah,
you got to be true to with yourself first. And
yes,
and
exactly.
that's the journey that will really, once you transform that, and empathy for others in a very different way than when you're coming at it from a defensive point, like you said, or even from a point of saying, well, I don't do any of that, like I'm not. But like you said, everybody has some form of racism or ism in
Yes,
them, and this is where we need to work on it, on
yes,
ourselves. and
yes.
and I think so. I know we can go on and on about all of this, which is really important, and that's why I think weekly, if we continue this, we can take it in bite-sized pieces for it to be processed and for us
Mm-hmm,
to really kind of take it back and think about it and see how we can do things differently and be different.
mm-hmm.
So I know we can continue, and we will continue next week, but I want to thank you for your time, because you really, even, I mean, from my audience, I hear from them after the show, and sometimes
Right,
people will message me, but more so for me, I'm getting this as more of a deeper understanding for
right.
myself.
Mm-hmm,
And especially when we're in this platform of sharing live, you're in front of an audience. You want to make sure that you are showing up, you are practicing what you're preaching, kind of thing, right? And the
yeah,
whole thing is not to say that we know everything about everything, and sometimes
exactly,
we're making mistakes, and we learn through these mistakes, but the idea is to learn through them.
exactly.
So
And I get, sometimes I get pushback on my positions, and I'm by no means uh, saying that I represent everyone who looks like me, or that I know it all. And I am not saying that I'm perfect and I'm innocent. I mean, there have been points when I have been the one who's being reactionary. And, there have been points when, I have been affected by this systemic racism also. And someone in one of these conversations says, well, you have to be forgiving. And I do try to be forgiving, but one of the things with asking to be forgiven is you have to take accountability for your own actions, and you have to accept those and be apologetic for it. You have to want to change, because if you say, forgive me, and then you continue to
Yeah.
perpetuate the system, then you come out of the realms of systemic racism, because now you have awareness. Systemic racism tends to be ignorant, but now you have awareness. And when you continue to perpetuate that at a level of awareness, then you become overtly racist. So if you want change, you have to have these conversations, and you have to be willing to listen and step off of your position of defensiveness and be willing to be a part of the change.
And I think the other thing, just as we end, the idea of listening without the quick reaction of responding. Like, not everything needs a response. It's about really listening and taking it in, and not always looking at, well, what's my response going to be to that, what you've just stated.
Yes, that
Right.
part.
So
That
I
part.
think, I mean, this is where our skills have to get better as, as communicators, and we're empathetic, but yet we're, responding and reacting. And so I think this whole thing about emotional intelligence, as we make people understand the importance of it and raise everyone's emotional intelligence, we become better humans. We become more understanding and compassionate, and
Yes.
maybe at some point become a human race, and not these races that are now depicted by color, creed, or religion, whatever that is.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
So I want to continue this. I want to first thank you for your time, because I know you put this sort of point in your Friday that you spend with me. So I want to acknowledge that. And I think the conversations I have with you are profound. And I always go back and I think about things that we've talked about, and how I can make changes, or the way I'm thinking. If I am even interacting with somebody, I'm catching myself even before
Yeah.
the words are coming out. Like, is that appropriate? Is that appropriate? Or is that going to offend them or make them feel bad? Because my intention is never to make anybody feel bad. But
Right.
sometimes we just don't even know that. Like, we're unaware.
Right.
Yeah. So
Right.
thank you for that. I think for me, it's really awakening me to a different place, for me to behave differently, especially with me being on media like this, and having the interactions with so many different types of people, so many different backgrounds, and all of that. So thank you for that. So we'll continue this next Friday. I want to wish you a wonderful weekend.
You
Be
too.
blessed always, and I will see you next Friday.
All right. And
Thank
I will put a call out for the U.S. for July 4th. This is our
Oh,
Independence
yes.
Day, and in solidarity with Black Lives Matter, we're asking, instead of wearing red, white, and blue, that everybody across the world on July 4th wear black.
That's awesome. And you know what? I will post that as well on my feed, and make sure that that goes out there. I think in terms of standing with solidarity, if there's something we can do that's on a day, it's a certain day where we can say, well, you know what, we're going to stand with our brothers and sisters, then I think July 4th is the day. And I'm all in for that. I will support you, and I'll put it on my feed as well. So thank you for sharing that. I hope that everybody that's watching, whether it's on replay or live, hashtag Black Lives Matter, and let's support our fellow Americans on July the 4th with not wearing red, white, and blue. So thank you so much, Cheryl. I will see you next Friday. Be blessed.
All right. Thanks. Have a wonderful weekend.
Thank you. So everybody, as you hear that, remember July 4th. It is something that we can stand together with our friends, and in America, Black Lives Matter. Wear black, and post it on my profile, post it on a video, post it so that we can show solidarity and stay together in supporting Black Lives Matter. I want to wish you all a happy Friday. Be blessed, be safe. Remember to be kind to yourself and to others. I will see you on Monday at 10 a.m.